Another busy night of news in this ever-changing world of people, power, and politics. This is The Pulse. I'm Tara Nasher. Once again, the big headline tonight, the war between Israel and Iran. President Trump says the ceasefire is on despite his expletive-laden frustration with the countries violating the deal. However, today, both countries finally have acknowledged that ceasefire, but at this hour, we are still waiting to hear the terms. The big question now, what happens next? But the biggest talk around the world is the conflict in the Middle East, not involving President Trump. Today, the president went off about both Israel and Iran, claiming that the countries violated the deal he brokered. Israel accused Iran of launching missiles into its airspace after the truce started. Iran denies this, but Israel's prime minister claims after speaking to President Trump, he held off on a tougher strike on Iran. Even though both sides have acknowledged the ceasefire, the deal is still seen as shaky. No details have been released about what either side gave up to make them finally reach a ceasefire. 28 people, though, in Israel lost their lives during the so-called 12-day war, but the death toll was much higher in Iran. Some reports claim at least 974 people were killed there. Also tonight, new intelligence revealed about the U.S. airstrikes on Iran. The bunker buster bombs reportedly only set Iran's nuclear program back a few months, and it didn't obliterate it, like President Trump said. The White House pushed back on this, calling the report flat out wrong.
Not let them have a nuclear weapon. They won't have a nuclear weapon. And I will tell you, the last thing on their minds is nuclear weapons. They don't even want to think about nuclear. And our B-2 pilots made this all possible. They had a magnificent hit in the dark of night with no moon, no light, no nothing. They hit the target perfectly, wiped it out.
But before he boarded Air Force One, the president talked with reporters on the White House lawn and shared his frustration with both sides. But Israel in particular, and he didn't mince words.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Well, a lot of you giving your thoughts on our Fox 2 Facebook page about this. John Ray doubts the ceasefire even existed, adding the president should have just stayed out of the conflict. Sebastian claims Israel has violated numerous ceasefires. Terry isn't confident there will ever be peace in the Middle East. And Scott calls the president's move a bully tactic, putting out publicly what he wants to be true, hoping all sides will then fall in line. If you want to weigh in, make sure you head to the Fox 2 Facebook page and make your voice heard. Well, since President Trump launched the airstrike, many on both sides of the aisle claim it was unconstitutional and Congress should have been consulted. As the House and Senate seek answers, the Trump administration postponed classified briefings for lawmakers on Iran. That briefing will now happen Tuesday, so Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio can attend. But earlier today, Texas Congressman Al Green felt so strongly he tried to impeach Trump on the House floor.
I believe that if we do not take immediate action, this authoritarian president will not only devolve the country into authoritarianism, I believe he is a would-be dictator who would become a dictator.
But that effort went nowhere. Most Democrats voted with the Republican majority to table the measure, and House Republicans posted on X saying, quote, "We got your back, Mr. President." By the way, when you saw President Trump speak on Air Force One, he was headed to the NATO summit in the Netherlands. The Iran-Israel conflict will be, of course, a hot topic, but so will defense spending. The NATO Secretary General praised President Trump for making Europe, quote, "pay in a big way." President Trump wants all NATO members to increase their defense spending to 5%.
By having a unified system, I think we're going to have stronger peace, better peace. And I think we have that. You know, when I went to NATO, they were broke. When I first started this whole thing.
We have to do this because of the capability targets. We have to keep ourselves safe from the Russians.
The whole world needs to win in the fight against
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be in the Netherlands as well, even though the country's not a NATO member. He wants to meet with President Trump to try and restart ceasefire negotiations with Russia. And it's an ever-changing story, and we want to get reaction from all sides tonight. And Rabbi Asher Locatin with the Jewish Federation of Greater Ann Arbor is here with us. And thank you so much for being here. This is ever-changing, certainly. The Middle East conflict, though, does seem to be building, although there is this temporary, shaky, fragile, whatever you want to call it, ceasefire. What are your thoughts on this? Do you trust it?
Well, I have a lot of trust in actually President Trump's foreign policy, and that's because it's America first, and he's American. So he's not always going to agree with Netanyahu or with Israel. I was just in Syria a couple of months ago, and President Trump pushed aside some of the doubts that Israel had about Syria, and many others did, and is lifting the sanctions. I think that's great. I think now, and actually, we're seeing a lot more peace in the Middle East than we saw before. Lebanon is holding back Hezbollah and saying, you don't get involved in this Iran war. Syria is letting Israeli jets go through the airspace. We're seeing a lot more. The Gulf countries condemned the missiles from Iran.
Why do you think that's the case?
Qatar.
Is that because the U.S. got involved? Should the U.S. have gotten involved?
Yeah, just in a very minimal way, not troops on the ground, but America needs to do to fight this power, Iranian power, which is a crazy regime that is, zealous, that just wants to destroy Israel and America. It's time for America to say, okay, we're going to get in just enough to not let you get any nuclear weapons. And I saw in the reporting, well, the same people that were saying that Iran was 3 years away from getting anything serious are now the ones saying that it only set it back 3 months. So what is it, 3 years, 3 months?
Well, do you think that they got all the enriched facilities?
They got enough for now. They got enough for now. And I think that the Middle East is going to come to its senses. Let's focus, like President Sharaf of Syria says, focus on Syria. Iran should focus on building up Iran in a good, positive way. Palestinians should look towards building up their group rather than trying to terrorize Israel. It's tragic. Everyone should focus on doing good for their people and not just obsessing about destroying Israel.
All right, so if we have a 12-day war that goes on between Iran and Israel, and the U.S. was involved, why is it taking so long to be able to get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas with the Gaza Strip?
Well, the ceasefire is very strong now. Israel has totally normalized what's happening. Flights are going in nonstop.
But Israel was just bombed. I mean, things were going on just hours ago.
Israel trusts Donald Trump that he's going to keep Iran from sending over missiles, and he's pulled back. I love that press conference. He said, Israel, I don't want you doing anything either. He's holding everyone to task, and all I can say is that Israel's moving ahead. People are flying into Israel, out of Israel. The economy is going. And I hope that Iran does the same thing. Focus on helping your people.
But what about, though, the people that are in the Gaza Strip? And we still have, we know Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he was not going to give up until those hostages are released or all of the military members of Hamas are dead. I mean, it sounds like this could go on for quite some time.
Well, unfortunately, this is day 627. The hostages are being held. And it's been very hard to get Hamas to release them. And unfortunately, I think Hamas is holding on to them as hostages. That's their trump card.
Of course. But what's it going to take to finally is who's going to make the first move?
I think it'll take, this is what Secretary of State Blinken said, when the world says to Hamas, it's over, get out of Gaza, give up the hostages, it is over. And I think we're closer to that because Hezbollah, no one helped Iran. Not that we know of. And in fact, people supported in some ways. They condemned Israel for a lot of things, but they supported Israel in many ways also. If the world says to Hamas, it's over, give up the hostages. If on college
What do you mean by the world? Are you talking about maybe at the NATO summit? We're going to hear that possibly come out?
I hope so. I hope that they say that, like the hostages need to come out. And then Trump, I'm sure, will say the war is over, enough, I don't want any more. And he can rein in, I'm American, though. I have Israel in America and I have Syria in America. So we're great. And the Druze, and we care about a lot of countries. If you're Irish American, you care about Ireland also. So I definitely care about Israel. I am an American, and I think that that's what needs to happen. Get those hostages back. The whole world, college campuses, They should be protesting, give up the hostages. And then don't worry, the war will be over. Hamas is terribly
So you
weakened.
think that Prime Minister will quit bombing over there in the Gaza Strip or anything that has to do with Hamas or Palestinians if they give up the hostages?
Yes, I think
nothing to do with the military any longer.
Thank God, I think they've weakened Hamas sufficiently. They could always do more, and I would be tragic if Hamas takes over again in what's left of Gaza. That would be tragic for Palestinians. But I think they've weakened them. If we get the hostages back, if they're released, it's going to be over. This war will be over.
How soon do you think that might be happening? Your thoughts? I mean, I know you don't have official word, but...
look, I think we saw this war only lasted 12 days, and I think Tucker Carlson thought it'd be 10,000 people dead and everything,
It's fragile, that ceasefire. We'll have to wait and see.
But I think Trump has the right direction, and he's strong, and I think Iran sees what Israel can do. They held all the airspace. So this could happen, in Judaism.
You sound very positive.
In a blink. I am positive now. I think things are going to go in the right direction with peace in the Middle East, maybe Lebanon, maybe Syria, Saudi Arabia. We'll see.
We can only hope. We've always wondered if that would ever be achievable. But thank you, Rabbi Locatin, for being here with us. Certainly sharing your insight. We appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Well, now we're getting reaction from the other side after the break. Arab American news publisher Osama Sablani, he's here as well. You are watching The Pulse on Fox 2. We'll be back.
Okay.
Back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. And here now to talk about the ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran. Arab American news publisher Osama Sablani is here with us to give another perspective. I wish we could have had you both on together, but that didn't work out.
It's okay.
It wasn't in the cards.
It's not my choice, though. My choice is to have both
But
of us.
now we're going to individually speak with you about this situation. And I have to ask, though, when you heard about this ceasefire, did you believe it? Do you think this was orchestrated?
No, I believed it because both parties were exhausted. The Netanyahu government did not expect the resistance that they got and the beating that they got out of Iran. Iranians showed that they have strength, they have the missiles to hurt the Israelis, they bombed inside Israel, and they did not expect that. Or if they expected it, they did not expect the intensity of it. And therefore, 12 days is too much for the Israelis because they were always in, in shelters, and the bombs were
we know
hurting.
that in Iran, more people died, over 900 people compared to
the population is much bigger. You're talking about 90 million versus like 7 million. I mean, this is a huge country.
What about the U.S. involvement, though? I mean, President Trump preached peace.
Plus, they have bigger bombs too. The Israelis, they have American bombs that kills people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen it what these bombs did in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Syria. So we have seen how damages.
But we know that why Israel feels that it sponsors terrorism, and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. I mean,
the biggest terrorist right now in the world is Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the one who is killing. Netanyahu is the one who is attacking. Netanyahu is not stopping, and they make excuses, but they keep bombing and killing. Every time you get up in the morning, before you wash your face, 60, 70 people have been killed.
Well, he is
in Gaza.
Indeed, I mean, you can say that he is trying to take out the military, the Hamas military there. That's his plan.
He is not going to be able to take Hamas military. He is trying to get, it's very obvious. He's saying, kick 2.3 million Palestinians out of Gaza. They said it many times. They do not want to keep Palestinians in Gaza. So he's not after Hamas. He's after kicking all Palestinians out of their land. So this is, it's a smokescreen what he's saying. Listen, it's not my opinion only, it's the opinion of the world. The International Court of Justice said that Netanyahu is a war criminal.
What about, though, the U.S.? You didn't answer it, being involved in this. Should the United States have, with the B-2 bombers, be involved? And when Trump said that he was never going to be involved, was that a good idea?
It was a very bad idea, and he has corrected it right away.
What do you mean by that?
By pulling out and saying it's time for both to stop the war. So I'm
do
not
you think
saying
this was just a way to show, a showmanship?
I do not believe one word that comes out of Trump's mouth. I don't believe it. Like this guy, he speaks from both sides of his mouth, from upside down, sideways. You cannot trust anything that comes out of his mouth. The problem is that Trump is acting on his own. Most of the time, he's not only surprising me and you, but he's surprising his own team.
Right,
his own team don't even Congress. Know where he's turning, right or left, at any juncture in there.
But Osama, what is it going to take, though? And I asked the rabbi the same thing, to be able to get a ceasefire so quickly with this 12-day war, a ceasefire, but yet we still have 627 days that's going on between
Because Hamas
Israel
does
and
not
Hamas.
have the power that Iran has. See, in America, we try to downplay the power of Iran. Iran is a regional country, it's a regional power, and they are resisting the hegemony of the Israelis over their land. This is a country that has 7,000 years of history. It's not like it was born yesterday in 1948.
It's been going on.
But
is it about who's going to make the first move, and whoever does it is the show of weakness?
Look, I think the only way that we can address this if we go back to the root cause. The root cause is the Palestinians must have their own independent state, side by side, to coexist with the Israelis.
But isn't the root cause what happened on October 7th,
But how do you exist with someone who has been occupying you for 76 years by force? How do you live with a monster like this?
There's been a ceasefire in the past, Osama, and it never stuck. Hamas continued.
No, there was never peace in the region. There was never any peace in the region. As a matter of fact, the region has reached a point where it's no longer in peaceful mode. Everywhere.
What is it going to take? Because people are dying every day.
Israel is attacking Lebanon right now, as we speak.
Yes.
Israel is attacking Syria and occupying Syria, and Syria has done nothing to Israel. They violated the 1974 accord between Israel and Syria. Now, Israel is attacking Iran. Israel is attacking the Hamas.
Well, they're not. They stopped attacking
West Bank,
Iran.
and the West Bank.
Okay, but why doesn't Hamas just release the hostages and see what happens?
Well, why don't Israel stop bombing Hamas and go to Qatar and sit there and make an agreement where they can release the hostages, they will release the prisoners, and then they will stop the war.
But no one trusts each other. No one thinks anybody's going to be good on their word, and why would they?
They are talking, but there is a person who is he intends on keeping the war, because the way he stays in government, Netanyahu, is by keeping the war going.
So you think if there was another leader in charge, this would be much different?
You should hear what Olmert is saying, the former Prime Minister of Israel. He's calling Netanyahu as a war criminal. He's calling it, not me.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens now, and hopefully we'll see a ceasefire between those countries sooner than later, because there are a lot of people.
Well, the only country that can make.
Yes, I'm going to have to wrap you up real quick here, Osama. I apologize. We'll have you on again very soon as this continues. Thank you so much. Well, we're continuing this conversation, as I mentioned, after the break. A public policy professor with focus on the Middle East weighs in on what could come next, what should come next. The Pulse is back in a few minutes. It's people, power, and politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show. As tensions ease, at least for now, following a fragile ceasefire between Iran and Israel, the big question is, where do we go from here? And Javed Ali, a public policy professor with a focus on the Middle East, recently warned that without smart diplomacy, this conflict could easily spiral out of control. He joins us now via Zoom, and we welcome you to the Pulse. Thank you for being here.
Tara, nice to be with you.
All right, so I think the big question now is, because this ceasefire, some are calling it fragile, what are your thoughts? Do you think that this agreement is built to last?
So, Taryn, the commentary that you referenced was written Saturday morning, and here we are into Tuesday evening, and the landscape has shifted considerably. Even Saturday morning, when in the aftermath of the U.S. strikes on Iran, I didn't think we'd get a ceasefire this quickly. I thought Israel and Iran would continue to fight each other. And then the other aspect what would Iran do in the aftermath of the U.S. strikes against it? And then we saw the response to that yesterday. So here we are now. There's as you mentioned, a fragile ceasefire in place. it may last going forward, or it could all collapse by 11 o'clock tonight. I mean, these are all things that are so difficult to know, and the dynamics are so fluid and volatile. And I think at this point, we're just going to have to take things day by day. But at least we've got to an initial ceasefire, and now it's going to be up to all the key players in the region and President Trump back here at home to determine the next steps and whether they're actually, there will be a stop to the fighting or whether it'll flare up just hours or days from now.
Well, we still don't know the details of the agreement, correct? I mean, we're still waiting to hear that. So what was the magic, I guess, that went into this that allowed it to stick? Because we still have Israel and Hamas fighting, and that many are waiting for that to be able to be a ceasefire there. Do you think that it's going to change things possibly, though, long term? And if so, what is it going to take for the Middle East so this doesn't flare up again?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I could be totally wrong on this, but I don't think it's this grand bargain type of deal that you're hinting at. I think, if anything, it's just an immediate pause to the fighting between Israel and Iran. And again, we don't even know what the terms are of that. And it potentially opens up a pathway for either the U.S. and Iran, like they were doing in April and May, and to talk about the status of Iran's nuclear program, although that program is probably very significantly diminished. Maybe Israel will get involved with that too, but I don't think we're going to get to the grand bargain type of deal where all the countries in the region are now sort of at peace with each other and only focused on their internal domestic affairs. I mean, that's never happened anyways in the Middle East, but that's way off in the future, if at all. And I think the possibility of that right now is pretty slim.
Well, and that being said, with so many moving parts, should we be worried here on American soil that potentially some terrorist cells are here and would like to retaliate because the U.S. got involved?
Well, not now, because Iran has pulled back, and their attack against the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar yesterday was more of a demonstration attack than anything else. And they choreographed that too with the Qatari government, and even signaled to the U.S. government that it was coming. So I don't think there's going to be a realistic threat of any Iranian or Hezbollah attack cells here. I'm not even sure that capability is here to begin with. But the U.S. is looking out for that. There was a terrorism alert bulletin sent out by DHS and FBI, but I just don't think that's feasible right now or plausible, because Iran has at least agreed to some kind of ceasefire with Israel.
What do you think is going to come out of the NATO summit? I mean, are you feeling that this is just something to rev up potentially more war spending and being able to get maybe a stronger base with the allies and going after the Middle East? Or do you think that this might actually create an alliance to be able to help bring peace when it comes to Israel and Hamas and ending that war, and Russia and really in Ukraine?
I don't think, again, the NATO summit has anything to do with these conflicts in the Middle East. NATO wasn't even involved in the Iraq War in 2003. That NATO was involved in Afghanistan in 2001. So, and that coalition that was more focused on Al Qaeda and the Taliban. So I don't see President Trump going to NATO and that NATO summit. To me, that is more about the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, and also following President Trump's sort of direction for these NATO countries to boost their own defense spending to eventually kind of scale up and level up so they can protect themselves and not be under the cover of a U.S. security blanket.
Well, it does sound like, though, that there needs to be some more, perhaps, diplomacy all the way around when it comes to this. But we have just scratched the surface. Hopefully, we'll be able to speak with you again, Javed Ali, about this and get your insights. Certainly, you have a very good grasp of what is going on when it comes to policy there. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to talk to you soon.
All right, great. Thanks, Taryn.
Thank you. Well, that is the Pulse for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Taryn Asher. See you tomorrow.